Yes, didn't last long. Anyway, the first item on our agenda is any apologies for absence? Nothing? Okay. Item 2 then is any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interests. Are there any? No? There we are. Right, okay. Item 3 is to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting as a correct record. That begins on page 1, page 2, and page 3. And you've moved that. Thank you very much. Any items for deferral or withdrawal? Sincerely hope. No, Chair. Thank you. So, no. And then item 5 is determination of planning applications under the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990. And we have one there, which is you find on page 7, and it's the development at Bailey Glass Farm in Lycha. And that's for you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So the application site was previously granted full planning permission for the erection of 97 dwellings by the planning committee just over 3 years ago now. So the application before you today is a section 73 planning application which seeks to make some minor changes to the approved scheme. So the slide on the display there, that basically shows the application site, which is unchanged from what we approved 3 years ago. So there's, in terms of the changes, there are 2 main sets of changes. One is to the layout of the proposal. There are some minor tweaks, and they are very minor. And the second set of changes relate to some changes to the site levels within the site and the introduction of retaining structures. So I'll talk you through them briefly. But as I say, the changes are quite minor. So if you go on to the first slide, please, Ian. So the first slide shows the layout that was approved by us 3 years ago. So that's the approved layout. If you can see the top, so the main changes in terms of layout, if you can see the top right corner, there's a pair of semi-detached houses there. They have been substituted by one detached dwelling. And then further down, slightly lower down, there are, where Ian is hovering, the cursor there on the approved drawing, there's a detached house and a pair of semis. They have now been replaced by a small terrace of 3. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Ian. So yeah, so the detached drawing is the one in the top corner, which you can see there, which has substituted the 2 semis. And then further down, you've got the link. Some of the house types have been swapped around. There's no new house types, but what they've done, they've swapped some house types onto different plots. But in terms of the actual layout, you can see the road layout is pretty much exactly the same as before. It's quite difficult really to spot the differences between what was previously approved and what is before you today. So they are the only changes in terms of layout. So the main set of changes relate to the introduction of the retaining works and the associated changes in site levels. So if you can go to the next slide, please, Ian. So this is an engineering drawing of the top half of the site. So if you can see along the northern boundary at the very top, coloured in blue, there is now proposed a set of gabion baskets along the rear of those gardens. There's, as you come down, Ian, on the left of those houses, there's a set of new retaining walls there. Further down, there's another set of retaining walls, and again, this is the middle part of the site. On the western boundary, there are a set of retaining walls which back onto some of the existing houses. On the eastern side, which is in the shaded green, there's another set of retaining walls, but again, between 2 sets of proposed houses. And if you go to the next slide, Ian, there's another set of new retaining walls towards the bottom end of the site, again, between 2 sets of the proposed houses. So the developer has provided us with some cross-sectional drawings, which will demonstrate the kind of approved cross sections and the proposed. So These are the houses towards the top part of the site. So as you can see, the ground levels in terms of the back gardens of some of the plots has changed slightly, and you've got slightly different retaining walls. And if you can go to the next one, Ian. Again, some minor changes. I think on that particular scheme, there was a low retaining wall between the backs of the houses. There's now a slightly higher retaining wall with a fence on top. But again, not really any tangible difference between the two. The houses on the left are the existing houses. The houses on the right-hand side are the proposed. So you can see there is a change here in terms of the garden levels. So the proposed houses are more elevated further back into their plots, but you've got boundary treatment there, and you've got an element of screening to hide the retaining structure, which will support that rear garden. Again, another set of dwellings, proposed dwellings, which are back to back. So again, there was no retaining wall in the approved scheme, which is the top one, but retaining elements are now being introduced, again, with fencing on top. These are the houses further down into the site towards the southern end. Again, well, I think the kind of changes speak for themselves, really, but some minor changes to the rear garden areas and the introduction of retaining wall with fencing above. I think there's one more, Ian. I think this is the last slide. The change here is quite insignificant, really. It's very, very similar in terms of ground profile and the retaining structure. So all in all, we don't really feel that the proposed changes are significant. We've got no real concerns about them. There have been some objections, Chair, but I think a lot of the issues raised by the objectors mainly relate to the proposed development as approved. So yeah, we are not here to discuss that today. Obviously, the approval has been granted. There's still a live consent in place. We are only here to discuss those changes, which, as explained, are relatively minor in nature. So I'll nothing more from me, Chairman. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Oh, what?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Could you just confirm that there is the same number of properties on the site now as in the original application which this committee approved?
There's actually one fewer, so we approved 97. We've actually lost one unit. So I think towards the start, one of the earlier slides, we indicated that there were two houses, and we've lost one. So we've still got 96. The number of affordable units on the site remains the same, though.
Thank you.
Two questions. First of all, I'm a bit confused about the introduction of the retaining walls, because presumably these levels were the same on the original plan. And I can see they maybe just extended the gardens, which may require some of those retaining walls. But why didn't they see the need for retaining walls when they originally put this together? Or do we miss it?
No, we didn't miss it. So what's happened? Some of the slab levels of the houses have been dropped. So on the original plans, a lot of the houses had steps leading up to the front doors. So in order to remove the stepped access going up, they've had to drop the slab of the houses, which has in turn resulted in some of the rear gardens having to be reduced, which in turn requires retaining works to be created.
Yeah. So the other question, I'm not familiar with this area, so I'm not quite sure how close this is to the estuary. But in terms of TAN 15, that's now changed since the original application is lodged. And are we still going with the old TAN 15 or the new TAN 15 in terms of assessing this, or doesn't it matter because it's just a few changes?
Yeah, in terms of, as far as I'm aware, there's no TAN 15 implications.
Okay.
The site's a significant distance from.
Okay, because I wasn't sure what that area was below on the south.
Yeah, it's not far from the Glebe Public House, I think.
Oh, so there is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Chair, if I could just confirm with TAN 15, anything submitted before the new TAN took effect is considered under the old TAN. So it'll only be applications submitted from 31st of March that will be considered under the new TAN. And we will be bringing a briefing to members shortly on that.
So even if it's a new application amending a previous plan, does it go back to the first one, or does that count as a new one?
It would be, if it's submitted after the 31st of March, it would be under the new TAN.
Even if it's just making small changes?
Even if it's making small changes, but obviously the planning permission would be a material consideration in any decision if there's already an existing planning permission.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Okay.
Councillor Tribe?
Thank you, Chair. This question is more or less parallel with Councillor Black's questions. I just wonder if there's any linkage between the number of retaining walls, which is pretty unusual, and any flood risk factors. Thank you.
Not that I'm aware of, no. As I say, the retaining walls have primarily resulted or arisen due to the developer's desire to drop some of the slab levels so that they don't have to provide stepped access to the front of the garden. So there's no implication, or they haven't been designed to avoid any flooding issues, if that's your question.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We can't see any other hands up to speak. No one else wants to ask a question or comment. No. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Well, okay, we see the recommendation before us is one to approve, so we can take that vote now. And please, Gareth.
Yeah, Councillor Maya Baker. 4. Peter Black.
4.
Phil Downing.
4.
Alan Jeffrey.
Yeah.
You're on mute, Alan.
On mute, Alan.
4. Yeah, I can see 4. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mary Jones.
4.
Mike Lewis.
4.
Richard Lewis.
4.
Nicola Matthews.
4.
Mark Tribe.
4.
Mike White.
4.
Andrew Williams.
4.
And Paul Lloyd.
That's 4.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you.
Down 4.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you all very much, and then we'll be meeting again soon. Thank you.